Let's talk about trading. I mean, with all the strategies, all the tools, and endless information out there, why is it so ridiculously hard to be a consistently profitable trader? Well, we're about to find out that the answer isn't buried in some complex chart, it's actually inside your own head.
First, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and look at the brutal reality. According to trading psychologist Randy Howell, who's been studying this for decades, a mind-blowing 97% of people who get into trading fail to make consistent money. Look, that's not just a business with tough odds. That's a statistical cliff. So what on earth separates that tiny 3% who actually make it from everyone else?
You know, it's so easy to blame the market, right? The algorithms, the big institutions, it's rigged. But what if the problem isn't out there? What if the real issue is the tool we're using to play the game? This whole explainer is built on one core idea. The problem isn't external, it's internal. The mismatch isn't with the market, it's with our own brains.
Okay, so let's dive into trading's 97% problem. To really get it, we're going to lean on the work of Randy Howell. This is a guy who's coached traders for years, and he figured out that the number one thing holding people back isn't their strategy, it isn't their analysis, it's their own psychology. Here's Howell's core idea, and it's a big one. The very brain you use for everything else in life, the one you're using right now, is fundamentally completely mismatched for the financial markets. It's simply not built for this. You're bringing the wrong tool for the job.
I want you to think about it like this. Our brains evolved over millions of years to survive on the African savanna. We were dealing with immediate life or death threats. We are, for all intents and purposes, cavemen staring at a computer screen. And that ancient wiring, which drives something like 95% of our daily decisions, is now trying to handle a world of pure abstract risk and uncertainty. And it does not go well.
And here's the central conflict, right here on the screen. Our ancient brain sees a losing trade not as a manageable risk, but as a threat, like a saber-toothed tiger in the bushes. It desperately wants certainty, but the market only gives you probability. So what happens when you take a loss? That old brain triggers fight or flight right at the exact moment you need to be patient and disciplined. To your brain, a threat to your money is a threat to your life.
So let's see this ancient brain in action, because this isn't just a fun theory. This deep internal conflict shows up in the most common and most expensive trading mistakes. We can literally trace them right back to our old survival instincts.
You know that feeling, that frantic urge to jump into every single trade you see? That's your brain spotting a woolly mammoth, a giant reward that could feed the whole tribe. And it gets so excited it just goes completely blind to the risk. And that feeling of panic selling the second a trade goes against you? That's the exact same instinct that screams run from a predator. In both cases, your smart, rational trading plan gets totally hijacked by ancient emotions.
Okay, so you've probably heard the advice, just treat trading like a business. It sounds so logical, so smart, but according to Howell, for a lot of people, especially competitive alpha types, that mindset can be just as dangerous. Because in trading, the rules of the game are completely flipped upside down. In a typical business, your goal is to win, to not lose, to control the outcome through sheer force of will and hard work. But in trading, you have to get good at losing. You can't control the outcome of any single trade, you can only control your own performance. That competitive fire that makes you a great entrepreneur, in trading, it's poison.
And Howell tells this perfect story about it. He coached this wildly successful multi-millionaire entrepreneur, a total alpha personality. He jumped into trading, convinced he could just build it like his other businesses. 4 years later, he wasn't making a dime. So after some coaching, he finally becomes profitable. And then he quits. He just walks away. Why? Because he admitted that success in trading required him to give up the one thing that made him successful everywhere else, his need to control the outcome.
So this brings us to this huge, weird paradox. A mental shift so profound that the very idea of winning becomes a losing strategy. To actually become profitable, you have to completely change what the word winning even means.
This quote from Howell just nails it. Success isn't about dodging losses, it's about mastering them. It's about making your losses small, expected, and totally boring from an emotional standpoint. Real success comes from a process so disciplined that your wins are just naturally bigger than your expertly managed losses.
So your entire focus has to shift away from the money and onto the process. Your new job isn't to win, it's to perform. After a trade, you have to ask, did I follow my rules? Did I manage my risk exactly as planned? Did I execute without hesitation? If the answer is yes, then that was a successful trade.
even if you lost money. Because over the long run, performance is the only thing you control, and it's the only thing that actually leads to profit.
And listen, this isn't just some motivational speech. The results of making this mental shift are absolutely dramatic. Remember that depressing 3% success rate for most traders? Howell reports that for the clients who actually commit to this psychological work, the success rate jumps to 30%. That's a tenfold increase. And it's not because they found a better strategy, it's because they built a better mind.
So if the problem is our ancient brain, how in the world do we fix it? Well, the real game isn't you versus the market, it's you versus you. It's all about self-mastery. The goal isn't to fight your brain, but to retrain it, to build a new mind that's actually fit for trading's very unique challenges. Howell actually lays out a pretty clear path. Step 1, you have to really understand what emotions are and how to regulate them physically. Step 2, you have to develop what he calls an observer self. That's the part of you that can watch your thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them. And finally, step 3, you learn to lead your actions from a place of cool, calm discipline, not from fear or greed.
Let's just dig into that first step, because it's a total game changer. We always say, I have an emotion, like it's something we possess. Howell says that's backwards. Emotions have you. They are, first and foremost, physical events, a chemical rush, tension in your shoulders, a change in your breath. Before you can ever manage the thought, you have to manage the physical response.
And here's the cool part, you can start doing this right now. Simple belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing directly hacks your nervous system and calms that fight or flight response. Howell even suggests putting a small mirror at your desk. You'd be shocked to see the tension in your own face, to realize you're literally holding your breath. This is the root of mindfulness, just noticing what you're noticing.
So all these steps, this whole process, it's all about building a new trading mind. It's about fundamentally rewriting your internal operating system so that you can actually thrive in an environment of total uncertainty, which is exactly what the market is.
And this really is the ultimate point. The market acts like a perfect, ruthless mirror. It reflects every single one of your psychological flaws right back at you. It forces you to deal with your need for control, your fear of the unknown, and your relationship with failure. To succeed at trading is to succeed at mastering yourself. There's no way around it.
So in the end, you can have the greatest technical analysis in the world, but it means nothing if the person pulling the trigger is emotionally compromised. The real work, the real edge, is managing your internal state, your patience, your discipline, your ability to stay neutral. That's the one edge that no algorithm or institution can ever take away from you.
And that brings us to the final trade, the only one that's really ever happening, you versus you. The entire journey gets reframed. It stops being about finding the perfect strategy to beat the market. It becomes about building the perfect mindset to navigate it.
And that leaves us with one last question to think about. Trading gives you a brutal but totally honest feedback loop on your own personal growth. The real battle is always internal. So who's going to win? Who are you going to let execute your next trade? That impulsive, fearful caveman, or the disciplined, patient master of self that you are working to become?